Hi guys, thanks for tuning into my channel. Today we'll be looking at a Britain's Got Talent magic trick. This is not one of the typical card tricks that we see, but it is a trick that I've seen a few times, at least in parts that are involved in some close-up street magic. So we'll jump straight into it and yeah, let's watch this video.
I need two individuals who have an undeniable bond.
A
connection established in 1989. 30 years ago this very year. Can Ant and Deb please join me on stage?
Okay.
Deb, take a seat.
So I'm just going to assume here that, you know, they're clearly I think they're the hosts of the show. So, you know, they're not involved in the trick. This trick could be done with complete strangers that have never met before. But I think there are a few gimmicks in this trick, and, you know, I am sort of guessing and sort of thinking what I think would be the best way to do the trick. It's not completely obvious that this is the way that this gentleman does the trick, but the methodology should work in most settings.
To my right, and
There.
Ant, please sit to my left.
The wrong way around.
Gentlemen, can you both please close your eyes now? Close your eyes now. You must pay close attention to all sensations you may feel.
So let's just note the first thing that these guys are listening to. They've said that you must pay attention to all sensations that you're feeling. That's quite a broad statement, so you'll find that that statement being so broad is going to help for 2 out of the 3 parts of the trick, and then one part I think is somewhat gimmicked, I guess you could say. But yeah, let's have a look.
If you felt a touch, please raise your right hand. Now lower your hands and once again pay close attention to all sensations.
So let's just note that's the first, you know, feat that this magician performs. So he taps the gentleman on the right in the head, but the question that is asked is, please raise your hand if you felt. Wait, what was the sentence that they said?
Please raise your right hand. If you felt a touch, please.
Right, so they say if you felt a touch. Now, they both raised their hand. He clearly felt a touch because he was physically touched. Now, we don't know how Ant was touched, or sorry, whoever the other guy is was touched. He could have been touched in any sort of mannerism, and I would assume, for the sake of doing this trick, that the first one again is somewhat gimmicked, and the chair plays an effect to how you're being touched. So let's just say that on the back of the chair there is some sort of gimmick or mechanism that, you know, while the gentleman has his eyes closed, a button is being pressed, something is being sent, and some sort of device is pressing into him at a certain part of his body. It's definitely not the head that's being touched. It's some other part of the body, but being able to say, look, raise your hand if you felt like you were touched, then of course he's going to put his hand up if he felt touched, let's say in his back or on his leg or any part of his body. So that's the first way that I would do the trick. Simply have that gimmicked chair that is going to touch him on some part of his body, and then not say where were you touched.
Attention to all sensations.
So this one's more interesting. So he pushes him somewhat in a position that the chair here could also press him. So before he pressed it up here, nothing is going to touch him on the head. So the question that is asked is, raise your hand if you were touched, put your hand back down. This time it's going to say, raise your hand as if you were touched, and then tell us where you were touched. Now, because he pressed him here, it's very possible for the chair to, you know, have some sort of physical signal that presses into his body in that particular part, and that's how I would simply do it.
If you felt a touch, raise your right hand. And now point to where you felt that touch. Felt that touch.
Right, so this time they're saying, where did you feel the touch? He points over here, he points over here. You know, it makes perfect sense that, you know, he would point to the spot where he felt the touch. So this time the question asks, where did you feel the touch? So remember the first time it said, did you feel touched? And it didn't ask where, because Ant would never have pointed to his head. He would have pointed to some other part of his body. Whereas this time it was somewhere where the chair could have had some sort of mechanism that touched him.
Oh my god.
This time, remember how many times you feel a touch. You feel a touch.
So again, this time the parameters have changed again. Instead of saying, where did you feel the touch? It's simply, how many times were you touched?
If you felt a touch, raise your right hand. Raise your right hand.
So again, nothing is going to feel like he was touched there. So the question cannot be, and point to where you were touched, because he would definitely not point there. He'd point to some other part of his body, either down here, either behind here on this black sheet there. There could be something pressing into his back, who knows, but he definitely felt touched.
And now with your right fingers, show us how many times you felt a touch.
So again, they both show 3 fingers. Yes, he felt touched 3 times. So whatever item, you know, that does that trick goes 1, 2, 3, and he's going to show 3. So they both experienced 2 different things. He experienced a touch on the head, a touch there, and 3 touches there. He probably, if I was doing this trick, would have just a gimmick thing here, there, and a gimmick thing there. So he would feel maybe 1 touch here, 1 touch here, and then 1, 2, 3 touches there.
Lower your hands and open your eyes now. Your connection is incredible, incredible. For the ultimate test of connection, please take a pen each. I also have a board for you both.
So this is quite cool. So we saw before all that stuff that I think, you know, would have the same effect, would have been done that way, but now what's going to happen is they're going to draw on these 2 these 2 whiteboards, and what's going to happen is the goal is for them to be the exact same image. So what I find, you know, sort of interesting in this one is the magician. Well, let's have a watch and I'll show you what I mean.
Board for you both. For this to possibly work, let your subconscious minds connect. Begin drawing.
So you'll notice that both their eyes are closed. So this trick could, if there was any sort of connection between these 2 in that sort of way, then more than likely the magician's going to say, face each other, look at each other, connect, and then draw whatever comes to mind, and their eyes would be open. Whereas in this case, their eyes are closed. So that immediately suggests to me that these pens are not exactly as they would seem. And the magicians do this all the time. They'll do it generally, I think, with pencils. I've seen it done with pencils before, where there'll be some sort of cap on the top that's, you know, you don't see, or the pen or the pencil will just, like, the pen will have no ink, and it just can't draw. So it looks like as you're moving your hand around, you're drawing something, but if your eyes are shut, you wouldn't know. So if your eyes were open, yes, you would know. But a magician sometimes says, okay, take this pen without looking, put a circle somewhere in the book, and again, there's that little plastic cap on the top of the pencil, and they'll do that circle, nothing will draw there. And what will happen is there's already a circle on the page, and it'll appear where the magician wanted that circle to appear. In this case, I believe that this board and this pen is somewhat gimmicked, and whatever sheet was covering initially. So initially we saw, where is it?
I also have a board.
We saw these two boards like this, so I believe that there's something covering here, and it's simply just going to disappear at some point, and then they're going to draw and it's going to reveal what was underneath.
Subconscious minds can 9. Drawing now.
So one thing I like to note is the image you'll see at the end, you'll only see points of what these guys are doing with their hands, and you know, I think it further supports the position that what they're doing with their hands looks nothing like what the image is at the end. So you'll see this guy, I believe he goes back and forth like this, and this guy does like circle, 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 circle like this, and it really doesn't look like what comes out at the end.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, so again, their eyes are closed. If their eyes were open, then this trick couldn't work. So I'm going to say that that's the way that I would have done the trick. I would have got them to close their eyes, have the pen that doesn't work, and then have that gimmicked board which reveals what was drawn underneath prior.
When two people are truly connected, the impossible is possible.
Actually, to tell you what, it could actually be done now. So they were just drawing on that sheet. Now their eyes are still closed. He's taken back both the boards, and now he's doing whatever he needs to do to reveal what was underneath. So he's maybe sliding it up with his hands now, pressing some sort of button or anything just to move whatever was covering the top before. They're not told to open their eyes while the board's in their hand. It's given to him first, and so that actually would be a much better way to do it.
You may open your eyes. Your connection with each other is truly inspirational. We have just witnessed the ultimate connection.
No way.
An undeniable bond that was established 30 years ago in 19...
I mean, yeah, very cool trick, very cool effect, and you know, it comes out the way the magician wanted it to come out, and I would suggest that something was covering this, and however it gets disappeared, it's just some sort of gimmicked board, and the pen is also gimmicked. So that's pretty much the end of the trick. That's how I would do it. I'm not sure if that's how he does it. It definitely, I think, has the exact same effect. If you had two people sitting there, you would end up with them thinking that they went through the same sort of trick if you did it the way I said. But yeah, no, very cool trick, very cool effect, and very cool presentation. So if you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. And if you'd like me to do any other particular videos, please leave it in the comments below, and I'll get to it as soon as possible. Thanks.